Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Senate races to wrap up Biden-McCarthy debt ceiling deal before default deadline. Trump and DeSantis jab at each other on campaign trail in first dueling appearances as 2024 candidates. Biden tells U.S. Air Force Academy graduates their leadership needed trips after speech. Washington State Senator Mark Mullet announces governor run. Baseball legend Steve Garvey considering U.S. Senate bid in California, energizing beleaguered GOP. Residents of collapsed Iowa building were allowed to stay as reports noted crumbling wall. U.S. Defense Chief calls China's refusal to meet unfortunate during visit to Tokyo for talks. LGBTQ+ people flock to Florida for Gay Days festival. Governor raises gay pride flag over Wisconsin Capitol in show of support for LGBTQ+ community. Christopher Nolan breaks down the best ways to watch a movie ahead of his Oppenheimer release. US and South African firefighters to battle wildfires in Canada. UK government refuses to hand over Boris Johnson's unredacted messages to coronavirus inquiry. Russian bombardment of Ukrainian capital kills at least 3, including child. Zelensky pushes for Ukraine support at European Leaders Summit in Moldova. Rybakina racks up 30th win of 2023. And Messi to play last game for PSG on Saturday, confirms Galtier. You were listening to Headlines, now news in detail. Days away from a default crisis, the U.S. Senate dashed on Thursday to wrap up work on a debt ceiling and budget cuts package that overwhelmingly cleared the House, aiming to send it to President Joe Biden's desk to become law before the fast approaching deadline. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the chamber was digging into the bill that Biden negotiated with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and would keep working until the job is done. He warned of a crush of ideas from senators anxious to revise the bill's budget cuts and environmental policy changes, but said there is no good reason, none, to bring this process down to the wire. Passage in the Senate will require cooperation between Democrats and Republicans, much the way the narrowly divided House was able to approve the compromise late Wednesday night. Fast action is vital if Washington is to meet next Monday's deadline, when Treasury has said the U.S. will start running short of cash to pay its bills, risking a devastating default. Having remained largely on the sidelines during much of the Biden-McCarthy negotiations, several senators are insisting on debate over their ideas to reshape the package. But making any changes at this stage seemed unlikely, and even opponents of the final deal say they will not hold it up. Former President Donald Trump kept up a steady drumbeat of criticism of his chief rival Ron DeSantis on Thursday, jumping immediately on remarks by the Florida governor on the campaign trail to try to highlight his own strength as the leading GOP presidential candidate. Trump, appearing in Iowa as DeSantis campaigned in New Hampshire, made a point of telling about 200 members of a conservative club gathered at a Des Moines area restaurant that they could ask him questions. A lot of politicians don't take questions, they give a speech, Trump said to the audience, many of whom wore red Make America Great Again hats espousing his political movement. Trump also sought to capitalize off a remark by DeSantis that it felt like it would take 2 terms in the White House to really roll back the actions of the Biden administration, a veiled reference to Trump, who can only serve 1 more term. President Joe Biden on Thursday thanked U.S. Air Force academic graduates for choosing service over self, but said they now have the great privilege of leading in a world that will only get more confusing in the years to come. Graduates, you made a noble choice to lead a life of service, Biden told more than 900 cadets in remarks on the sun-splashed field at Falcon Stadium in Colorado. Now you also shoulder a great privilege and a mighty responsibility. Leadership, yeah, leadership. In the years ahead, your airmen and guardians are going to look to you for guidance and inspiration because the world is going to get more confusing, he added. They will put their trust in you. You, in turn, must strive to always be worthy of their confidence. In a segue into foreign policy, Biden talked about how the U.S. had rallied Western nations to stand behind Ukraine against Russia and efforts to enhance deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. He also expressed confidence that Sweden will become a NATO member. Washington State Senator Mark Mullet announced a bid for governor Thursday, joining a growing field of candidates seeking to replace outgoing Governor Jay Inslee. Mullet, a moderate Democrat from Ithaca who owns a pizza restaurant and 3 ice cream shops, said in a news release his campaign will focus on affordable housing, public safety, climate change, and the creation of jobs that allow people to start families and buy homes. Too many families can't afford, even on good salaries, the rising cost of living, Mullet said in a prepared statement. Too many families are worried about the direction of public safety in our state, which is why we need different leadership in Olympia. Mullet joins 2 other Democrats, Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson and Washington Public Lands Commissioner Hillary Franz, in the race for the open seat. At least 2 Republicans, Yakima Dr. Raul Garcia and Richland School Board member Sammy Byrd, have also announced candidacies. Inslee, the longest-serving governor in office in the U.S. and only the second Washington governor to be elected to 3 consecutive terms, announced in May he would not seek a 4th term. A primary election is set for August 2024, leading to a general election in November. You would have to go back a generation to 1988 to find the last time a Republican candidate won a U.S. Senate race in heavily Democratic California. This time, the party might get an MVP on the ballot. Baseball legend Steve Garvey, who played for the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres, is meeting with voters and senior GOP officials as he weighs a potential 2024 Senate bid in a race that already has several prominent Democratic contenders in the field. He appeared at a recent fundraiser for Republican Representative Michelle Steele in Orange County, where he signed baseballs and talked about his potential candidacy. He is seriously considering entering the race, said veteran consultant Andy Garkani, who is advising Garvey. The 74-year-old Garvey had an 18-year Major League career. He was National League MVP in 1974 and retired from baseball in 1987. Garvey has flirted with the possibility of entering politics before, including after his retirement from baseball, when he teased a possible US Senate run but never became a candidate. A structural engineer report issued just days before an Iowa apartment building partially collapsed indicated a wall of the century-old structure was in imminent risk of crumbling. Yet officials did not order residents to leave and said Thursday they relied on the engineer's assurances that the building remained safe. 3 residents of the 6-story building in the eastern Iowa city of Davenport are still unaccounted for, and there are no immediate plans to demolish what remains of the extremely unstable structure, according to local officials. Crews were using drones to scan the building and consulting with experts about how to safely bring down the structure while being respectful of bodies that could be buried in a debris pile, Mayor Mike Madsen said. It's dangerous and it's shifting, Madsen said. The 6-story building partially collapsed shortly before 5 p.m. Sunday. Rescue crews pulled 7 people from the building in their initial response and escorted out 12 others who could walk on their own. Later, 2 more people were rescued, including one woman who was removed from a 4th-floor unit hours after authorities said they were going to begin setting up for demolition. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin stressed the importance of communication during a stopover Thursday in Tokyo, calling it unfortunate that his Chinese counterpart is refusing to meet him at an upcoming annual security conference in Singapore, which both men are attending. On the way to the annual Shangri-La Dialogue Asian Security Summit this weekend, Austin held talks with Japanese Defense Minister Yasukazu Hamada. Noting China's increasingly assertive military actions in international airspace and waterways in the region, he told a joint news conference in Tokyo, "The provocative intercepts of our aircraft and also our allies' aircraft, that's very concerning, and we would hope that they would alter their action." The United States military said Tuesday that a Chinese fighter jet flew aggressively close to a U.S. reconnaissance aircraft over the South China Sea, forcing the American pilot to fly through the turbulent wake. "I am concerned about at some point having an incident that could very quickly spiral out of control," Austin said. "I would welcome any opportunity to engage with leadership. I think defense departments should be talking to each other on a routine basis or should have open channels for communication." Although Beijing said there will be no meeting between Austin and his Chinese counterpart at this security summit. Hamada is expected to attend and meet with Chinese Minister of National Defense Li Shangfu on the sidelines. Tens of thousands of LGBTQ+ people are flocking to Central Florida this weekend to go on theme park rides, mingle with costumed performers, dance at all-night parties, and lounge poolside at hotels during Gay Days, a decades-long tradition. Even though Governor Ron DeSantis and Florida lawmakers have championed a slew of anti-LGBTQ+ laws, spurring the most prominent gay rights group in the U.S. and other civil rights organizations to issue warnings the Sunshine State may no longer be safe. Gay Days organizers are still encouraging visitors from around the world to come to one of Florida's largest gay and lesbian celebrations. They say a large turnout will send a message that LGBTQ+ people are not going away in Florida, which is continually one of the most popular states for tourists to visit. If the hoped-for 150,000 or more visitors come to the half week of pool parties, drag bingo and thrill rides at Orlando's theme parks and hotels, then that's the point, said Joseph Clark, CEO of Gay Days Incorporation. "Right now is not the time to run. It's not the time to go away," Clark said. "It's time to show we are here. We are queer and we aren't going anywhere." Unlike most of the country, which celebrates Pride in June, Orlando holds its Pride in October. Gay Days is a bonus celebration. A gay pride flag rose the Wisconsin Capitol on Thursday in a sign of support for the LGBTQ+ community as it weathers heightened attacks from conservatives across the country. Democratic Governor Tony Evers ordered the flag raised during a noon ceremony as dozens of spectators looked on. The flag will fly over the Capitol throughout the month of June in recognition of Pride Month below the U.S. and the Wisconsin state flag. The Village People's YMCA and Urban Dancing Queen played from speakers before the ceremony began. Spectators were decked in t-shirts that read, "Be kind and you are loved." The governor told the crowd he was jazzed as hell to be there. He acknowledged the LGBTQ+ community is under attack and conservative rhetoric about the community has emboldened hate. Raising the flag sends a message to everyone who wants to belong and find a home, he said. It's no secret that Christopher Nolan made Oppenheimer to be seen on the big screen. But not all big screens are created equal. That's part of the reason why Universal Pictures has made Oppenheimer tickets available early for over 1,000 premium large format screens, with options including IMAX 70mm, 70mm, IMAX Digital, 35mm, Dolby Cinema, and more. Knowing that even those words can get overwhelming and technical, Nolan went a step further. In an exclusive interview with the Associated Press, he offered a guide to his favorite formats, explaining why it matters and even where he likes to sit so that audiences don't feel like they need a film school degree or one in theoretical physics before settling on a theater. In a film about J. Robert Oppenheimer, the theoretical physicist who oversaw the development of first atomic bomb during World War II, this will be especially pivotal in viewing the Trinity test, the first detonation of a nuclear weapon. Nolan and his effects teams recreated the blast with all its blinding brilliance. Now it's time for global updates. More than 300 firefighters from the United States and South Africa are heading to Canada in the coming days to help the country battle an unprecedented wildfire season. Federal officials said Thursday that at least 100 U.S. firefighters will be arriving in Nova Scotia over the weekend to help knock down out-of-control wildfires that have forced about 21,000 people from their homes since Sunday. Another 200 firefighters arriving from South Africa will likely end up in Alberta, though officials say the wildfire situation in the country is fluid. In Nova Scotia, two major fires that remain out of control, one in suburban Halifax, the other in the southwestern corner of the province, have already destroyed at least 200 homes and cottages. Still, fire officials announced Thursday that the fire near Halifax had been 50% contained and that it had not grown on Wednesday. The latest contingent of arriving international firefighters will be joining hundreds of their colleagues from countries including the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, who already were in Canada battling fires. The British government on Thursday refused an order to supply the country's COVID-19 pandemic inquiry with an unedited collection of Boris Johnson's personal messages and instead launched an unprecedented legal battle against a probe that the former Prime Minister himself set up when he was the UK's leader. The head of the probe, retired Judge Heather Hallett, asked to see notebooks, diaries, and WhatsApp messages between Johnson and other officials that represent key evidence in the inquiry. The government provided incomplete versions, saying it had cut personal and private information that was unambiguously irrelevant to the investigation. Hallett, who has the power to summon evidence and question witnesses under oath, wants to judge for herself and set a Thursday afternoon deadline for the government to hand over the unredacted documents covering a 2-year period from early 2020. Soon after the deadline passed, the government said it would seek to challenge the order in court. The Cabinet Office has today sought leave to bring a judicial review of the decision. It said, "We do so with regret." Just before the deadline expired, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said his government would comply, of course, with the law and cooperate with the inquiry. Russia launched a pre-dawn missile barrage at the Ukrainian capital Thursday, killing 3 people, including a 9-year-old and her mother, and damaging apartment buildings, schools, and a children's hospital, officials said. It was the highest toll from a single attack on Kiev over the past month. A 33-year-old woman died as she and others waited to enter a locked air raid shelter, which left the group at the mercy of falling missile fragments, according to her husband. Officials ordered an investigation. The latest attack, using what Ukrainian officials said were short-range, ground-launched Iskander missiles, coincided with events scheduled in Kiev to celebrate International Children's Day. Those events were cancelled. Ukrainian air defenses shot down all 10 missiles, but falling debris caused damage and wounded 16 people, authorities said. Russia has kept up a steady barrage on the capital and other parts of the country in recent weeks, as Kiev readies what it says is a counter-offensive to push back Moscow's troops, 15 months after their full-scale invasion. Kiev was the target of drone and missile attacks on 17 days last month. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky took his quest for more arms and support to a sprawling summit of some 50 European leaders in Moldova on Thursday, ending up the focal point of an event that seeks to quell regional conflicts and shore up unity in the face of Russia's war. The meeting of the pan-continental European political community, which embraces all European nations other than Russia and Belarus, gathered the heads of state and government from 47 countries, but its attention was on the continent's south and east, a region pushed to a turning point in its relationship with Moscow because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year. After a day of talks in the Moldovan countryside, Zelensky said the best security guarantee for Ukraine was membership in NATO and the European Union, and that any proposed peace plans to bring the war to an end could not take into account Russian concerns. "There is an aggressor in this war and there is a victim," Zelensky told reporters. "A peace plan cannot be prepared by the aggressor." The 27-nation EU hoped to use the summit to reach out to many Eastern European countries that spent decades either within the Soviet Union or under its immediate sphere of influence, and to bolster the continent's unified response to Russian aggression. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,031.09. The NYSE Composite is increased by 143.95 points or 0.97%. Tokyo stock close price is 31,148.01. The Nikkei 225 index is increased by 260.13 points or 0.84%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,204.63. The Shanghai index is increased by 0.07 points or 0.00%. Hong Kong stock close price is 18,216.91. The Hang Seng Index is decreased by 17.36 points or 0.10%. Bombay stock close price is 62,428.54. The Sensex index is decreased by 193.70 points or 0.31%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. World number 4 Elena Rybakina racked up her 30th win of the year on Thursday to reach the French Open last 32. The Wimbledon champion defeated Czech teenager Linda Noskova 6-3, 6-3 and will face Spain's Sara Sorribes Tormo for a place in the last 16. Kazakh fourth seed Rybakina, who could be the new world number 1 by the end of Roland Garros, converted 3 of the 10 break points she curved out and fired 30 winners past 18-year-old Noskova. Only Australian Open champion and world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka has more wins on tour this year than Rybakina. The Belarusian player, another contender for the world top ranking, has 31. Lionel Messi will play his last game for Paris Saint-Germain against Clermont on Saturday, coach Christophe Galtier said on Thursday, as he called on fans to give the Argentine forward a warm send-off at the Parc des Princes. Messi, who has 21 goals and 20 assists for PSG in all competitions this season, moved to the French capital from Barcelona in 2021 on a 2-year contract. The 35-year-old, who led Argentina to the World Cup title in Qatar and also boasts a record 7 Ballon d'Or awards, won the League One title in the 2021-22 and 2022-23 seasons with PSG, as well as the French Super Cup in July 2022. I had the privilege of coaching the best player in the history of football. This will be his last match at the Parc des Princes, and I hope that he will receive the warmest of welcomes, Galtier told reporters on Thursday. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all LED TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.